Welcome to the Big Screen Bulls podcast, a podcast where Caleb Kindle and Christian McCrite give their reviews and reactions to what's happening on the big screen. They talk about films, TV series, and other forms of media entertainment. Episodes are released every Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform. Be sure to follow the show's Instagram page at Big Screen Bulls Podcast, where new hints and updates will be released about future episodes.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Big Screen Bulls Podcast, where you have me, Caleb Kindle, and my co-captain in this situation, Christian McCrite.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. I think it's morning. Morning. Let's go with that.
Morning somewhere.
It's good. It's good. A morning somewhere on earth.
Was it Margaritaville? It's 5 o'clock somewhere. 5 o'clock in the morning, maybe.
The only thing I know about Margaritaville is the blenders that they make. I'm pretty sure that's the only thing I know about Margaritaville, and they have food, I guess. But anyways, that's besides the point.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a little bit off topic here, but no, we're gonna.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I had it written down here somewhere.
Margaritaville mixer.
In with the MCU stuff, Margaritaville. Anyways.
Well, that's what Christian just mentioned it there too, nonchalantly. We're going to be doing the creme de la creme, the thing we've wanted to do this whole entire time since starting this podcast. We are going to give you, what is it, Christian?
Our ranking of every MCU movie up to date, including Wakanda Forever. So that makes exactly 30 Marvel movies.
Dun, dun, dun. This is going to be a multiple part series, everybody. Just so you know, we're not going to rush through all 30 in a matter of an hour. We're going to break it down, tell you what we did like, what we didn't like, and why the bad needs to be bad and why the good needs to be good.
That's right. Now, this is just our personal rankings. So if your opinions differ from ours, no big deal. You're just wrong. It's totally fine.
I was going to say, I don't know where you're going with that, but you can speak for yourself here. This is all fact. Is what we preach on this podcast here.
Just dripping in objectivity.
If you look up Margaritaville blenders, you will see a blender.
Blenders. I promise you will see a blender. If you look up Margaritaville blender. Oh, anyways. So funny story. We actually tried to do this before, and technology wasn't quite working out for us. But since that had happened, Wakanda Forever came out. And then we were like, oh, perfect. Now we don't have to rank 29 MCU movies. We can just add another one on there and make it an even number.
Yeah,
so
old number 29. If you're out there somewhere, sorry we had to pass over you. Number 30 took your spot.
Just walked over your body, dude. But this is really special to us because since we grew up in a small town of Mansfield, Missouri, when we were growing up, comic book stuff, Star Wars, anime, etc., if you were caught liking any of this stuff, at least to some degree, you were definitely seen as like, you know, the stereotypical nerd, the geek, whatever. But us two here and a few of our friends, we spent quite a bit of our free time going to the theater and watching these movies specifically, the Marvel movies. And that's partially how we bonded. Not entirely, but it was a large portion of our life because anytime a new Marvel movie would come out, if someone had a driver's license or we were old enough to all have a driver's license, then we were up and at 'em. Yeah. So,
and again, we're talking like this is when the first Iron Man came out and a few other things like that. That
was
too.
A long time ago.
So
yeah.
Again, this is before all that was mainstream. Before like nerd culture became like dominant culture in a lot of ways. Which I don't know if the word dominant is the best word for it.
It should be.
And we might be geeks. We might be nerds. And they might have been right. I'm not making a good point.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't know. It may be stupid, but it's also dumb.
We had fun with it though. And
yeah.
I think if you look at us right now and look at the rest of the world, I think we would be called pretty normal, I think now. Especially
Yeah, I
since we
think
started
so.
a podcast just like everybody else.
That's right. When in doubt, just follow the crowd. Do what everyone else does. Never have an original idea. So, anyways, there's 30 movies, but we're only going to do the bottom 10 for this episode. So, are you ready to get started?
I think I'm ready. I think I am ready. Starting off at number 30, we're going to have a very uncontroversial pick here.
Yeah, Avengers Infinity War. This movie's garbage. I'm kidding. According to what's his name, Martin Scorsese, he thinks the MCU is garbage. Well, you know what? I'm not even going to get into that. The real number 30 is Thor: The Dark World.
Bum, bum, bum. Again, like I said, I don't think it's a very controversial pick here.
No.
What was to like with it?
It's visually stunning.
Yeah, visually stunning.
Yeah.
Thor has a little bit of a kind of internal dialogue he has to deal with a little bit about being a better god.
Yeah.
And not even a whole lot of that, even to an extent. You get a lot of Loki. It's kind of mocked as the antagonist when he really is not.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, we're talking about the good right now. Trying to think through the good.
trying to nitpick all the good things that are actually in this movie. Chris Hemsworth is still good looking.
Yes.
He's still jacked. Those are two separate points. Yeah, but as you said, like there are a few things to like in this movie, and like honestly, Loki, he isn't at his best in this movie, but he's still Loki. I mean, come on. But
it shows the ether, I guess.
That's
kind of neat.
It does,
the introduction to the Infinity Stone that we get to see later on.
Thor is really integral in a certain piece to like the whole landscape of the Infinity War, which is, it's crazy to look back and see like, yeah, each Avenger was pretty integral. Like Iron Man, like he had his stuff that was very integral for like his setup with Thanos. Thor is a lot of kind of setting up that kind of almost cosmic part, and setting up like the space stone and the Ether, which is the reality stone, and then Guardians of the Galaxy brought more of that cosmic aspect. But Thor was actually early on pretty integral to setting up like a lot of the Avengers movies and stuff. But this movie, I mean, it falls really flat.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of just like constant, there's a lot of constant action that didn't really set people's plot up. Again, you have his love interest, Jane Foster, in it. I think all the movies that have her in it kind of fall flat, in my personal opinion.
And the action scenes themselves even fall flat.
Yeah, exactly. And they try to give that comic relief within it. I know they try to do a lot of the Thor movies, but I feel like this one just didn't hit nearly as good as some of the better Thor movies that are out there.
It leans into like the annoying side characters. And I don't like them. And it has this weird plot thing about the convergence and the planets aligning and all this really strange stuff that's never mentioned again.
Yeah. And yeah, it's honestly, I almost forgot about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I did too, until I literally just thought about it on the spot. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That was an integral part of the movie.
Yeah. Speaking of other things I forgot, like I had to watch the movie again. I think you mentioned it too. Like I had to watch the movie again. Who was the villain in this?
I know it's the Dark Elves.
Yeah,
but gosh, what is
Malekith
his name?
Is his name?
Yeah, Malekith.
Yeah,
that's right.
If I didn't look it up before this, everybody'd be thinking I'm a goofball, but they probably already do. But
that's all right.
Either way, like when you go into the comics and stuff like that of Thor, you see Malekith and the Dark Elves. Like you see something really, really cool, like a Star Trek mixture with MCU superhero stuff, and then like
good cinematography, good use of like some practical effects and the makeup and stuff like that, all great. but as a character,
yeah, like we don't have very many scenes with him because We're too busy diving into the side characters, diving into Loki. We just don't see a whole lot of time for him, and you don't really see his motivation too well. And with an MCU movie, the movie's almost as always good as its antagonist here.
His motivation's pretty clear. He wants to bring back the darkness. That's that part that we don't know anything about or what that means. So, but that's literally all he does. He just says like, oh, the darkness and the convergence, which almost seems unrelated. But anyways, so the villain is probably one of the worst in the entire MCU. The acting is still good. There are a few things to like, but the side characters are super annoying, more than the first movie. They did get rid of the Dutch angles from the first movie. Thank you. Appreciate that. If you don't know what that is, it's when they have the camera like at like a diagonal angle, like sitting on the floor. I hate that. It's a personal pet peeve of mine. So they took that away. Awesome. The music is literally forgettable because I can't, in my mind right now, I cannot hear a single tune from that movie. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's it. And again, this is like, we got to give it credit where credit's due. It's the MCU. It's not the DCU. I will still go and watch it if somebody offers for me to go see it, because it still has enough content to make it.
It's still Marvel.
Worthwhile. Yeah. It's Marvel. Yeah. Let's be honest. We're going to rank these 30 to 1, but all of them I've watched and enjoyed in some fashion.
Is it better than Black Adam? I'm asking just you this specifically.
That might be a topic for another video.
Oh, man. Okay. Wow. Episode of the century. Is Thor 2 better than Black Adam?
It is the worst of
the fact that you have to contemplate and think about that probably tells me enough. So, but anyways, so that's the bottom. That's number 30.
That's number 30. So jumping up, another one. Again, I don't think it's going to be very controversial. We've got Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel.
It's just what was good. It introduced us to Captain Marvel, which was a huge piece within the whole entire Endgame saga. But at the same time, there's a lot that it falls short here.
Oh, yeah.
We get to see what did it do good? We get to see kind of the buddy cop deal of Captain Marvel and a young Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool in some instances. Some instances, it throws a little bit of a loop into it. A Captain Marvel that's not completely overpowered, which is good in its own sense at first, but also bad, I guess, in some instances. And I'm getting real nitpicky to see if I can find something really good here. The cat's funny.
The cat's kind of funny. It's set in the 90s. I like the 90s.
There's a Blockbuster.
Yeah.
I used to like Blockbuster.
That's true. Dude, remember back in the day, man. Let's see, is there anything else? That's pretty much it.
She's got blonde hair. I've kind of got blonde hair.
Imagine having one of the most important, integral Marvel comic Avenger pieces, which is Captain Marvel, which is glad they introduced her to the MCU. Brie Larson is a good actress. Too bad the character is total garbage. And I cannot stress this enough. If you are a good actress in a bad movie, that does not make that movie good. If you are a good actress with a poorly written character, that does not make it a good character. So I've had many of arguments and debates with friends and all sorts of people talking about how Captain Marvel, although the movie is not great, I like the Skrulls. I like that part. Kind of like her interactions with them and the whole twist in the end that they're not actually the bad people. Captain Marvel is a character. First of all, her powers are never clearly defined, and that really bothers me. She just can do stuff.
She shoots laser.
She shoots laser beams. She shoots like fire laser beams, and she can like fly and has like a sort of like a fire aura around her, I guess. And she's strong. There you go.
Yeah.
That's her whole character.
And she can fly through objects, ships and stuff like that, which they use constantly.
Yeah. and which she uses minimal to no times in this movie, but uses it all the times in other stuff.
Yep.
She wrecks people. She has powers that can wreck people across the board, but then she gets like captured just by some dudes. Like it doesn't, I don't know. It's very like in fluctuation. She's basically like a Super Saiyan. If a Super Saiyan was completely uninteresting.
Yeah.
So she's got good chemistry with Samuel L. Jackson, and that part of the movie is good. But I mean, she's super arrogant. Like she's arrogant to the point where like, okay, Tony Stark is arrogant, but he's charismatic and he's continuously like learning, and his personality is continuously evolving. And you can see him like, as he takes in information and he learns. Maybe sometimes he doesn't learn immediately, but you can tell a little bit over time, even in just one of his movies. Yep. With Captain Marvel, I don't feel like she learns anything at all. And
other than where she's kind of from.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a weird deal.
The flashback stuff just doesn't work.
It didn't work in this movie. Like, I'm trying to think of a movie it did work, which I can't think of anything right now. But
not this one.
It didn't work in this one, though.
Yeah.
So let's be honest here. So.
And I think, honestly, for me, part of why I put it so low as well is because I think it ruins Nick Fury's character. Okay, so Nick Fury talks about Captain Marvel like he tells like Spider-Man, like, don't you evoke her name, like as if she's like a god. And I don't like that because she's not, first of all. And second of all,
they were friends.
Yeah, they were friends for a very, very, very brief period of time. And then he has his whole mystery with like the eye patch over his eye. And turns out the end of that great mystery is that he got scratched by a space cap that was on his side.
Yeah, Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Supposed to be set up as one of the hardest guys out there. Supposed to be stronger than Hawkeye. Supposed to have more quirks and stuff like that than Black Widow. And he gets scratched by a cat.
Yeah.
And they make it a joke.
His big mystery is played off as a gag. And I hate that. That ruins it for me.
He's not a gag character.
No.
Like, that's like, what if we made the whole entire Wakanda Forever about a gag deal?
Yeah.
Like, that'd be an awful idea.
No, because it's not funny. Because we're not looking for something like that. We're looking for good characters. And we wanted to explore the backstory to Nick Fury, but it came out really bad. And honestly, like, not like offensive, but disrespectful, in my opinion.
And the Star Patrol that is the antagonist, do we see any more of that?
No. I mean, they're kind of sprinkled in throughout, and then like the main antagonist is played by Jude Law, and I love Jude Law. He's great actor, but once again, great actor, horribly written character. And it's like a rivalry between like a mentor who's actually the antagonist and like the trainee who's the protagonist. And then like the end of the movie is that like she says like, I don't have anything to prove to you, basically. And it's like, oh, congratulations. And now we are pretty much nowhere.
You could shoot literal fire laser beams out of your hands. Of course you should win.
Yeah. But whatever. So, but that's why this movie's at number 29.
Yeah, no, for sure. Again, Captain Marvel, like you said, like they set up in the comics of how amazing of a character Captain Marvel is, and it's just we're let down within the MCU universe. But
I agree. So number 28, we have Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2, again, this had to follow up a fantastic movie.
Yeah. A revolutionary movie.
Yeah. And yeah, again, it wasn't Iron Man 1.
No, and I think that's part of why everyone puts it so low, is because like it follows right after this great movie. But they changed the actor for War Machine, and I actually like him. Yeah. I like Don Cheadle. But a lot of things are played off as jokes in this movie. They have this really weird introduction to Black Widow, and like Nick Fury plays not a prominent role, but plays a role in this movie, very small, kind of setting up the Avengers Initiative. So some of this stuff is interesting.
Yeah, not as big as Elon Musk.
But
Elon Musk is in the movie for everybody that
Yeah.
hasn't watched it in a while. Whatever else, go back and watch it. It's kind of
Yeah.
it's a good gag.
Speaking of gags, the villain is kind of a joke too. So
Yeah, there's two villains within this.
there's Justin Hammer.
Yeah, Justin Hammer and then Whiplash.
Yeah.
Whiplash is kind of, I don't know, he's kind of a joke too in some ways. Like he's got the talking parrot.
Yeah, he likes his
cockatoo.
bird. Yeah. So this movie, although still it's got good cinematography, Robert Downey Jr. is still acting his butt off.
Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson is pretty interesting as Black Widow.
The script makes sense.
Yeah.
Again, everybody's seen what Tony Stark has done with his technology, and they want to re-replicate it.
And Tony Stark's dealing with like this new disease that he's catching because, well, he's sticking a metal tube in his chest. So part of that you can kind of understand. So then he goes on wild rage parties and he gets into arguments with Don Cheadle's War Machine. They actually have I like the scene where Colonel Rhodes takes the other Iron Man suit and they have like the Iron Man suit fight like in his house, and it's playing Another One Bites the Dust by Queen while they're hitting each other with weights. That one's kind of funny.
Yeah, and then they do have some good comedy moments in here.
They do, yeah.
And you don't really see that a lot within some of the Iron Mans. I feel like a lot less, at least. And I think they wanted to introduce it more into here, and it did do good in some instances, but it's not Iron Man, really.
Right. I think that this movie, from this movie moving forward, till the top of our bottom 10, I have to say that in a clarifying way. Most of these movies are now like they're all right at this point. The last two ones are not good.
Yeah.
These ones are all right. And Iron Man 2, there are things to like. The jokes are funny. Jon Favreau as Happy is awesome. Love him. Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts. She's always great.
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. is always 10 out of 10.
Has one of the coolest like suit up scenes I think ever.
Oh yeah, when he gets a suitcase at like a race car. He's at like a NASCAR race basically, and he like puts his hands in his briefcase, and his briefcase turns into an Iron Man suit. Super cool.
Yeah. The suit design too was awesome.
Yes, and they never brought it back.
Yeah. They kind of had his watch deal, I think, at one time that he's able to.
It is a little different, yeah.
Yeah, but either way, cool. We've talked a lot of good about this movie. What are the things that make it bad, though?
The villain is bad. I would say both of them. Like Justin Hammer is really just played off as a gag the whole movie. Like, oh, he's like kind of like the great value Tony Stark. Yeah. That's pretty much it. It doesn't go anywhere beyond that because Justin Hammer and this Russian guy who wants to replicate some sort of Iron Man Stark tech to kill Tony Stark. He makes like these electrical whips, but he also like makes a bunch of drones for Hammer, and it leads to a cool fight scene at the end.
Yeah.
War Machine his suit gets all decked out, and they're beating these drones, and then this movie moves really fast, and the pacing is very strange, but it moves extremely fast. And this guy he has like minimal things to say, and then all of a sudden he comes up with this big suit where he just has larger whips, and then he just dies. So I don't know. It doesn't really add anything.
Pretty uneventful, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really add anything. The only thing that this movie has to really offer is the fact that Tony was dealing. I think this entire movie, the entire like what this movie was actually purposed for, was to kind of set up the Avengers in some way, which is important, but also to have Tony Stark create a new element so that he would not die by heart disease.
And upgrade his suit.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important deal within the whole entire Iron Man franchise is how does he make the suit cooler and cooler every single?
Yeah, how does he keep upgrading it?
Yep.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And
it's not a whole lot more else to say about this movie. It's just pretty
Yeah. Pretty fair.
But moving on past that, we have our number 27, which is the first Thor movie. Now, what do you think about this movie in particular?
I like the idea of being unworthy. I like that whole concept of being unworthy. He's kind of cast out. He has to regain kind of what it means to be Thor, the god of thunder, to be able to wield the hammer again, to be able to save the day, do all this. But again, just like what we talked about with Thor Dark World, we have very uneventful side characters that don't really do as much.
And who are annoying.
Yeah, we have this love interest, Jane Foster, which is also...
And she's fine. Like she serves what she serves.
Yeah.
So,
but other than that, like, what else is there really to say about this? Like,
it's a very bland movie for it being a Thor movie, which is, an Asgardian god. Is he a god or is he a demigod? He's a god. Yeah, he's just the god of thunder.
Yeah,
and it's really strange because like they show some of Asgard, but you only see Asgard for like a very small portion of the movie.
Yeah.
It's in the beginning, and then he goes to Jotunheim, and him and his brother, you can kind of see the chemistry between them two. And he wants to go kill some frost giants. Why? Because he thinks it would solve the problem, because he's a brash young Thor. And, it doesn't go well for him. And then he becomes, as you said, he becomes unworthy because he put people in danger. And then he's sent to Earth. It's your classic fish out of water scenario. But the side characters are so annoying and they're so weird, and it's really hard to watch them. Sometimes they're really cringy and the dialogue is really strange. The things I do like about this movie are it has Loki. Loki's really good in this movie, as always. It establishes that Tom Hiddleston is Loki, and also establishes that Chris Hemsworth is Thor. I can't see anybody else playing these two characters. There's people I can see in other roles, but not these two. And so that's a compliment for sure. And Anthony Hopkins as Odin, fantastic. Love all that stuff. The plot is extremely stupidly simple. The main antagonist is Loki to an extent, but like his main boss fight is with like this like suit that just shoots fire out of his face, which has no emotional attachment whatsoever. It's literally just used as a plot device so that Thor can regain his worthiness. There are some funny gags in this movie. He takes he eats the box of Pop-Tarts, he takes the mug and he's like, I like this, another, shatters that. Fun stuff in this movie. I will say, I put this down. I would probably have this further up in the list by probably 1 or 2 spots if it wasn't for Dutch ankles. I can't. I'm not gonna say too much more about it. I just don't like them. But anyways, was there anything that you like particularly that stood out to you? Like, I don't like this, or this is kind of dumb.
I'm still even thinking about just like, again, like you said, the plot was super simple. Like, man that's unworthy becomes worthy again, has to fight.
He hangs out with a few people.
And
then someone just says, hey, you need to be Thor again. And he's like, okay. And then beats the metal guy.
Yeah. I don't know if it's much of a superhero movie, more of like, this is a Thor movie.
Yeah.
And understanding what Thor is. I think, and this is what it does really well. It kind of explains what the powers are, explains how it works. You have to become worthy to wield the hammer. Hammer can't be lifted up if you're not worthy for it. So way too much compared to the Captain Marvels, where it's, yeah, we're just going to go throw this together as quick as we possibly can. And we're not going to know what all this means.
Yeah. Visually, this movie is impressive for the time period that it comes out.
For the angles.
Not that part.
I love the angles. I love the crooked angles.
I meant, I love seeing things as if I were laying on the floor and turning my head to the side. No, I'm saying like visually, as in like cinematography, all the props, prosthetics, all the backgrounds, some of the set pieces they use, super cool.
Yep.
Super cool. But you spend most of the movie with Thor just being really awkward and kind of bumbling around, kind of wondering what he's supposed to do with his time and what his purpose is. They like tease Hawkeye for like 2 seconds because like it is kind of interesting because Thor is trying to go get his hammer because he wants to try to see if he can pick it up. And one of my favorite Stan Lee cameos is when he hooks up the truck to the hammer to see if he can pull the hammer out of the ground, and it rips the cab off of the truck. And but the hammer stays there and Shield gets all over it, and like Hawkeye like has like a bow trained on Thor, thinking that like because he's not the Asgardian god, he could probably kill him. Like who knows? They teased that, which is pretty interesting. They obviously teased the Space Stone, and that's it.
Yeah. Well,
that's this movie.
They tease the Space Stone in a lot of stuff.
That's true.
So
the Space Stone and the Mind Stone are both teased in this movie, and it, whatever. Yeah. It's an interesting setup for its time whenever it first came out, but looking back, you're like, wow, this movie doesn't hold up very well.
Not for sure. But after that's all said and done, let's get to number 26 because again, Thor just wasn't that memorable. All right. It's said and done. Number 26, we have the first Incredible Hulk.
The first, yes.
And some people will say this isn't a part of the MCU, but
yes, it is.
It is.
It is. It's definitely a part of the MCU. I don't know why people would say that it's not. The end credit scene literally has General Ross and pretty sure the end credit scene also has Robert Downey Jr. talking about the Avengers Initiative to General Ross. But anyways, that aside,
I think it's just because of the change in the actor, probably.
Right. But a lot of people hate on this movie. It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
It's not that bad.
I actually like this movie's all right in the sense of like, you know what? It's all right.
Yeah.
Like in an optimistic way.
Cool action scenes. Like it was your basic superhero movie back in the day.
Yeah.
Like plot's not too crazy thick. Does it have some annoying things in it? Yes, it does. Does the antagonist and stuff like that not really make a whole lot of sense?
No.
Not really. It was a simpler time for action movies, and
it was a simpler time.
Yeah, and superhero movies in general and stuff like that, where you have a good guy and you have a bad guy. Good guy punch bad guy.
Good guy beat bad guy.
Ooga booga booga.
It's basically it's like your classic caveman not Marvel, but your classic caveman superhero storytelling. Good guy has superpowers. Superpower dangerous. Government does not like guy with superpower, so government takes new guy with same superpower to beat guy with superpower. That's literally what it is.
Or just like back in the day too, I think it was just like the government's bad.
Yeah, it's like
in every instance the government is bad.
Yeah, in everything that ever happens, the government is immediately like right on top of it.
Yeah.
And has to be directly involved with every little bit. It's kind of funny. But at the end of the day, like there are things that it's not very good at. Some of the CGI doesn't hold up very well. Edward Norton, I like him, but he's not as good as Mark Ruffalo. Let's be honest. There's not very many action scenes. I get it because you kind of got the Hulk. A couple of them are really good. The end one is really good. Abomination, I still don't understand kind of part of what they were doing with it.
But it was cool. That's like, again, like this is probably why it ranks so low on the list in my mind. Is like it just doesn't make sense, but it's kind of cool.
It's like, man, I don't get this movie at all, but I can still watch it.
But yeah, it's the ooga booga effect.
The ooga booga.
Of like
coin that term. That's good.
Yeah. Abomination and Hulk punching each other in the face.
This is like
a chain to choke him out.
This is like
they break through metal like it's nothing.
This is the primal, the primal rage of the male brain, just exploding with punch each other.
Yeah, because you got a couple of instances too where you have Abomination before he goes full Hulk.
Yeah,
down, like he has some of the blood in him, and he's
He's super fast and he like can do like cartwheels off stuff. I don't know. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is kind of weird though, but it's kind of cool.
But it's kind of cool. That's a way to label this movie. This movie is really weird, but it's kind of cool.
That's a lot of these Hulk movies and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Or a lot of the like movies back in that time frame.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't until like you really ran into Iron Man where it's like plot.
Oh, turns out superhero movies can have good writing. What?
But we spent all of our money on punching each other, have these guys punch each other in the face.
Yeah, literally, they spent all their money just for the fights.
And they have the scientist as well too. You remember that part of it? The scientist turns like into Brainiac.
He's supposed to turn in like to like the leader or something like that, and that's never brought up ever again.
Which, again, this movie didn't rank crazy high with him.
No, but it also wasn't trying to be like the world's best superhero movie.
Yeah.
It was just trying to be kind of fun. The one thing I need to say about it before we move on to the next one is Liv Tyler. She plays Bruce's love interest, Betty, and she's really strange in this movie. She's not very believable as a character. Also, she yells a lot and she's very like moody. Like she yells at like very incomprehensible times to random people or over things that are just insignificant. And like for someone who's trying to be around someone who's not supposed to get stressed out, you should probably calm down a little bit. She like yells at people and she's like in this like taxi cab and something happened. Like I don't even remember exactly what happened, but she just like slams the door and yells at him. And I'm like, you realize you are like next to like a ticking time bomb, right? Like you should probably tone it down a little bit. That's about it. That's about all I can say about this movie.
Makes sense.
It's extremely strange.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
But other than leaving from a movie that was very strange but pretty cool, what do we have for number 25? We
have the original Ant-Man. This one's going to be a bit more of a controversial pick.
Yep,
because a lot of my friends love this movie.
Yep. And I don't think it was designed to be a superhero movie. That's why.
Yeah. I agree.
And again, like that's going to lose it points in some ways in my mind, but it makes it harder just to compare to the other ones.
This is a comedy movie.
A comedy,
for sure.
A heist movie too.
Yeah.
Like it's that classic heist movie of, I'm trying to think of the words to say here, but has to use the suit to break into various things and try to pay off his debt to society.
And it just has little bits of superhero-ness sprinkled in.
Yeah.
And this movie is funny. It is funny.
Yeah, it is funny.
It's still funny. Paul Rudd is great as Ant-Man. I love him. He's a great actor. I love him on stuff like Anchorman and things like that.
Oh my God.
I love Paul Rudd. I love some of the side characters. I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but the one that always tells the stories and it pans to like different people, but they're all using like his voice. Cannot remember what his actor's name is for the life of me. The guy that owns the van. He's really funny. Michael Douglas as Hank Pym. Awesome. It's kind of interesting to see that like they immediately start off with the second Ant-Man, Scott Lang, rather than the original Hank Pym. That was kind of an interesting take because I'm more used to a lot of stories with Hank Pym and not Scott Lang. So interesting creative choice. Evangeline Lilly's in this movie. And she's really good. She ends up becoming the Wasp later, but she's kind of used as more of a plot device in the first one. But so like there's a lot of things to like about this movie, but the reason why I think that, especially for me, why I have it at number 25 is that it's not particularly special. It's unique in accordance to other things in the MCU. Yes, it is a comedy heist, which not a lot of other things in the MCU at all do that, which makes it unique in that sense. But as a movie on its own, a standalone movie, I've seen things like it. And it, after like 2 rewatches, like the jokes don't become as funny anymore. And
this is a superhero movie.
Yeah,
ranking you as such. Like,
how do you stack up against these other superhero movies that are not only good superhero movies, but they're also good movies?
Exactly. And then how do you blend the ooga booga-ness
The ooga boogas.
to the kind of the comedy and then MCU is going to have to play with all that probably their whole life.
Yeah. And people make fun of Marvel all the time for having too much comedy in their movies. And I'd say that's a good representation of what this is.
Yeah.
It's a little bit too much comedy. It's too much of a good thing. So
I'll just say, folks, I wish we had a camera for this podcast just to see the face Christian made.
I'm just a goofball. What more can I say?
Yeah.
But what about number 24?
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't go too far into 25 because again we have Ant-Man and the Wasp on this list as well, on this list too, at number 24,
which has a lot of similar things about it that like the first movie.
Yeah, exactly, and that's again people could call this a controversial pick as well too. It is better than the first one.
It's one spot better.
It is one spot better. We get to see the new suit come out. I think it's pretty kind of cool. It almost seems like this movie's more of the superhero movie compared to the one before it. And you start to see it evolve into Ant-Man as a superhero.
Yeah. There's a lot more lightheartedness. It does have a little bit more of a complex plot. Bringing in Hank Pym's wife from the quantum realm and setting that up. Super cool. But once again, it has some antagonists that are kind of just brushed off. Ghost is interesting in her powers. Her powers are super cool, actually. She kind of teleports and she can also phase through things. That's pretty cool. I like that. But as a character, like, she's kind of just suffering because the powers make her go ow. And that's it. Like, it's just kind of painful for her. And I get that. Like, how, like, maybe if you're in that situation, how horrible that would be. But seeing it from a different perspective on screen versus other movies, you're like, wow, this is kind of an villain. They have another villain, which is like a businessman played by Walter Goggins. I don't even remember what his character's name is at all. That had to do with like a briefcase and stuff like that. I don't know. This movie's got a more lighthearted feel. It's the first one's pretty lighthearted, but this one's even more lighthearted in most of its senses. And it plays really well to that fact. And I love the chemistry between Paul Rudd, like Ant-Man and his daughter, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Having the Wasp on screen. I love the Wasp. It's great. It has all these great things, but it's in a story and a plot in a period of time that's just
Exactly. You heard it here, folks.
But that post-credit scene, though. The post-credit scene is really good. Because for those of you who don't know, who didn't watch, and if you didn't watch, then, well, shame on you. If you're a Marvel fan, you have to watch to the end. Everyone knows that. Ant-Man is supposed to go into the quantum realm. And when he goes into the quantum realm, the other ones are dusted from Thanos' snap. And it just like he can't hear them, and so he's like, hello, like, well, where are you guys? And the camera just pans back to outside of the van that he travels through the quantum realm in, and it's just dust falling. And I'm like, that's pretty cool.
And this movie did do something really, really well. It kind of gave us a little bit of a tease and ready for Endgame to come out, which I think that was the biggest purpose of this movie. I don't know if that probably wasn't the biggest purpose of this movie. Paul Rudd, sorry if you take that as an offense. If you do,
no, it's a good post-credit scene that kind of felt like it had to force its way into connecting with the rest of it. But did you have any more thoughts on this movie in particular?
Nothing crazy with it. Again, just like you said, villain wasn't just like outstanding, like memorable. Again, let's just, for time's sake, let's jump on to number 23.
So number 23 is the first Captain America.
Again, in some eyes, this is going to be controversial.
Yeah.
And again, the beginning is very, very good. Being able to see kind of a wimpy guy that has a lot of heart end up becoming the super soldier in the instance. Again, that's a pretty neat little story. They give him the secret serum. It makes sense. He just becomes kind of a superhuman with superhuman abilities of strength, metabolism,
Yeah.
speed, all that. All makes sense. All deserving of his character. But then we get hit with the sauce.
With the sauce.
The middle of the movie.
Where they montage through the World War, which is literally a big part of who Captain America is. Steve Rogers. What a good character.
Oh my gosh. This comes out and you have just the alternative, Tony Stark. An arrogant, kind of cocky character. And you have the good old boy, Steve Rogers.
It's an interesting thing because like both of them actually share this quality of it's not about the power, it's about the man behind the power, right? Yep. And Steve Rogers, I was trashing on Captain Marvel just a little bit ago, saying, "Oh, you know what, Captain Marvel doesn't learn any lessons." Well, Captain America doesn't learn a whole lot either through most of his franchise, actually. I think because most of his movies try to tell us that we're supposed to learn our lessons from Steve Rogers.
Yep.
And that can be an effective tool. Like, that's what makes his character better than someone like Captain Marvel. Because although Captain Marvel has a lot of powers and is supposed to be this great integral part of the Avengers leadership in the future and whatnot, nothing about her character strikes me as, oh yeah, she's the person that I would get behind. She's the person that I would follow to follow to my death any day. But Steve Rogers, he learns lessons along the way, but mostly I think we are supposed to learn from him.
And they set it up flawlessly.
Yeah.
They have the scene where they pull a grenade pin and throw it at him.
And he's still like a small kid. Like he does not have his powers yet.
He dives on it.
Immediately.
That's his first instinct, is to dive on it. So like to be so selfless. Like we didn't see that from Captain Marvel. We see, I don't know. I don't know if this is the right word for it, but kind of like strong woman, respecter type mentality, when they didn't really give us a whole lot to say. This is why you should respect her. I think the beginning of Captain America gave that montage of like, this is why he's worth respecting.
Yeah.
He's smart.
He's kind. He's compassionate. He's bold. Even when even after he got his powers and before he got his powers, he was the same person.
Yep. And that was great through all of it. And that's why this movie is ranked higher than the ones that came before it.
Yeah.
But again, we got to talk about what's bad with it.
Yeah. So Red Skull was a villain that I was so hyped for, played by Hugo Weaving, which is one of my favorite actors of all time. And the villain is just, once again, this is a recurring issue. The MCU is almost a meme. It has its own meme of bad villainy. And this is one of them. Red Skull is so underutilized and it's painful. Part of his plan makes no sense at all. And then they try to do so much in this movie. They try to cover so much ground, but it's hard to do that. They are covering so much time, bunch of new characters, half of them that you got to leave behind because he lives in the past. But those are some of the things that I think are bad. It's even visually, it's not even that great of a movie visually, like cinematography wise. Some of the CGI, I don't think holds up very well. I don't think it's particularly well directed. But that's my opinion. What do you think?
Again, the montage. That's the biggest thing I remember.
The
is
montage.
It just goes through this montage of.
It's very comic booky, but not in a good way.
Yeah, exactly. They try to play with something here. It didn't work. They stopped doing it. They learned. Fair enough. But again, like we have with Red Skull as well too, like was the arch enemy of Captain America, and he just used him so poorly.
He's wasted. And I mean, he comes back later.
Yeah,
but not as Captain America's antagonist.
Yeah, it just comes back as a a gatekeeper,
Ooh.
ooga booga. Or not, no, sorry, not that. No,
Wrong kind of ooga boo.
boo. Just
He's
take
the
the
ghost.
ooga, take the ooga out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just and again, I think it's kind of neat though. It peeps Stark. They do as well too. Tony Stark's father.
Yeah, it does.
Making the shield. But yeah, it just drags on so long in the middle of it to try to set a few of these things up, and it's not needed in my mind.
And it's hard because when you have a character that doesn't learn a lesson or doesn't evolve or progress much as a character, you have to fill your time with something.
Yeah.
So they put a bunch of action scenes in there. They montage through like some of the most important parts of World War. And then all of a sudden they have Red Skull, who then just kind of shows his face. Well, because why? Well, I don't know. He just does. And they immediately waste him, and they end the movie with like him like self-sacrificing to like dive bomb the ship. But he didn't need to. He crashed it into the ice, right? But he went over the ocean. Like, why couldn't he just crash it into the ocean and just escape from the ship? That was one of the biggest problems people have with this movie. It's like, you could have avoided like 90% of the things that you went through. But if that would have happened, we wouldn't have gotten some of the stuff that we did, obviously.
And that's just how it's supposed to be written. It had to be written that way. And
it's just really strange.
No, for sure.
But it does have one of the best end credit scenes of all time. Whenever he's like waking up and like he's being like he's in a room that looks like he's in his own time period. But then he kind of figures it out that it's all kind of an illusion, and he busts out and he's in like the middle of New York. And it's all technological, and he's like, whoa. And then Nick Fury like shows up and says, you've been asleep for like 65 years or something like that. And then he just turns around and says, I had a date, and it just ends. And that was pretty cool. Love the end credit scene.
Yeah, I loved his love interest in it too. Peggy.
Yeah, Peggy Carter.
What a
good character.
What a good character. Yeah.
She's strong. She's independent. She's a woman. So she's a strong, independent woman, but in the right ways.
They do it right. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like she also has like enough empathy, and she's not super arrogant. I really like her as a character.
I do too. But enough on this movie. Let's get into our number 22.
Number 22 is Black Widow. That just came out a couple years ago, actually. Or was it last year? I can't remember. And that's probably why it's this low.
Yeah, exactly. And a good movie for the most part, but I think everybody's going to say this. What terrible timing.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's like, let's imagine a football. You're up over 20-something points. With over half the fourth quarter is down. You get the ball. Hail Mary! That's the wrong answer to do.
Yeah.
If you guys don't know sports, you're playing Madden, whatever else. That's not what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You're supposed to run the ball and burn clock out until you win the game.
This movie came out at such a weird point. It's technically a part of Phase 4 officially, but it takes place before Infinity War or something like that. And it's all about family. This movie is all about family. And that part of it, those parts are fantastic.
Yep.
Her interactions with her sister, her name's Yelena, I think.
Yelena. Love
her. She's great. Her dad, Alexia, also really, he's the Red Guardian, who there's like a running joke in the movie that he's like fought Captain America, but nobody believes him. Yep. We never get a clear answer on that. I think that's kind of funny.
I wish they would like have, I don't know if they're ever going to think about doing this, DC. I would watch it, just to give you guys a heads up if you guys ever listen to these podcasts or anything, but I would watch a series of Captain America and what he did when he went back in time.
Yeah, I would too. I feel like a lot of people would actually go for that. And I think that like, an important aspect of that is like how like I wonder if the Red Guardian was actually telling the truth. I mean, come on, he's so similar in his power set to Captain America that I feel like it'd be kind of hard to lie about that.
Yeah.
But I just think it'd be interesting to see.
And it'd be a cool fight. Yeah, it'd be a cool
Yeah.
fight scene. And it has a cool like beginning scene within this movie as well too that really sets up the beginning for them. Again, they're raised as Russian spies.
Yeah.
And then they kind of fall into the family, into becoming Black Widows, and it explains what a Black Widow is finally. This movie, which I think was very well needed.
Yeah, and the 2 daughters had to go learn to become Black Widows and separated from their family. So the family dynamics in this movie are the best parts of this movie by a mile. Visually, movie's great. A lot of these are visually great. A lot of these Marvel movies are just visually great. You're going to hear us say that over and over. But story-wise, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And Taskmaster, who's one of my favorite Marvel villains of all time, is reinvented in a way that I don't think I like.
Yeah, I think a lot of people mention that too. Just like have a emotionless. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but it didn't face like it was a cool power set. Like it was a villain that has learned all the fighting styles of all the Avengers.
It could copy it like instantaneously.
Yeah, and that is a really cool power set. But just like they did with Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ghost, they kind of waste it.
Yeah. Taskmaster is known as like this guy who he talks crap and he's extremely intelligent. And he can copy most any sort of martial arts or type of combat. And he is a constant threat against the Avengers multiple times. But this movie, it's now like the daughter of like the boss of the Black Widow that's kind of like brainwashed, and it just doesn't work because it takes away part of what Taskmaster does so well. Because yes, Taskmaster's power set is super cool, one of my favorites, but also part of what makes it cool is the person behind the mask who's just kind of scheming, plotting. He's kind of an anti-hero at times, and he's kind of like against the Avengers. This time, it's just a person who's under mind control, and then they're like freed from the mind control, and then that's just kind of where that ends.
Never brought up ever again.
Yeah. And the CGI near the end of the movie where they're at this like flying base and everything starts exploding, the CGI is terrible, and the physics don't make any sense when they're falling and stuff
there's so
like
much
that.
Plot armor in this.
It's ridiculous.
And Marvel movies, usually I really like them because they just kind of make sense in some ways. Like for a superhero movie, it's like, hey, that's not that bad. That kind of makes sense.
It's not
like,
that bad.
I can believe that. Like
you do have to suspend your disbelief with some of it, but this one, there's some stuff in here that I'm like, that's too wild.
Free
for
falling
me.
out of the sky and is able to jump on enough
like steps to like almost like Legolas from like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, you know, like hopping. This is some of the stuff that I can't do. Now I know that you all are probably like listening to all these, and we'll listen to some of these later on, saying, "Well, you guys seem to, at least me particularly, like to base a lot of your opinions on, oh, the villain's very weak." Well, there has to be more wrong than that. And to you, I say that a villain is one of the most integral parts of a movie. When your villain is flat, when your villain doesn't play off very well, then it is really hard for you to get behind what your protagonist is trying to accomplish. Yep. Unless your protagonist is trying to accomplish something completely separate than overcoming an obstacle or an antagonist, the antagonist needs to play a pretty integral role and needs to be written well. That makes sense. Yep. This one, I understand kind of the writing behind it, some creative choices, but it doesn't do it for me. It's poorly timed. It feels like it should have came out 4 years ago.
Yeah, and it would probably be a lot higher if it did.
If it was, yeah, probably. But because it feels like it was almost an unnecessary movie. Like it added in some neat stuff that I do enjoy, but to some extent, like do my opinions about her as a character change at all because of the movie? No.
And I think the movie too was to introduce us to the Red Guardian and her sister to take over.
Yes. And they're going to be in the Thunderbolts, which I'm super, stoked for.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's our number 22. We have one more to do for this episode, our number 21, because it's 30 through 21 and then 20 through 11, and then, so on and so forth. Anyways, the top of our bottom 10 is, for me, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Do you agree? Or do you disagree? I concur.
Again, there was this specific spot, there was two that just really needed to be there, I think. But I think it's fair. Again, movie's beautiful.
Oh, yeah. It looks so good. It's such a good looking movie.
Beautiful. So good music.
It has Missouri in it.
Oh, my gosh. We did this when we did the first podcast. We probably talked a good 15 minutes about the great state of Missouri.
Yeah, the great state of Missouri.
That has nothing in it.
Yeah. I saw this in the theater, and the movie opens with like a title card of Missouri, and the theater I was in just went nuts for it, and we were all like, yeah, woo, hooting and hollering and stuff like that. That was fun. I enjoyed that. So that did add to my experience at the time, was the audience enjoyment as well. But looking back, this movie's stunning. The cast is great. The Guardians are still funny and serious when they need to be. But
God, they bring in Missouri into the picture.
They
most
bring
boring
in Missouri.
state.
This movie is very strange. It's still good, but it's really weird.
And it brings up some plots that just I guess it brings up some plots we forget about.
And also that kind of are wasted afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Like the whole deal, Peter Quill is half god, and that's why he was able to touch the Power Stone.
Yeah, he's like half celestial.
Again, we're thinking, they're gonna go a lot of places with this. He's gonna be able to become some type of god-ending power, stuff like that he's able to collect.
Nope.
Not today.
It's mostly like a father-son drama. Like, it's about kind of Peter Quill's daddy issues and dealing with his mom's death, which is an interesting take. But like, his dad is Ego, like the planet Ego, but kind of taken human form, and he's had like millions of children. And then to find Peter, who's like the actual celestial kid. So I don't know. I love Kurt Russell. He plays a good Ego. I love him as an actor, but his place and his role within the MCU in this movie is just, I don't think this movie correctly balances the seriousness to the jokes like the first one did, and that makes the pacing seem really weird.
Yeah.
Yondu is great in this movie. Yondu's awesome. Yondu's always awesome.
Yeah.
Rip to my boy Yondu.
Pour one out for the homie Yondu.
This is for you, Yondu.
And again, you get to see more of a likable aspect within Yondu.
Yeah.
With all these things,
he has
Yondu's kind of known as like the bad guy, the mercenary that doesn't care anything about Star-Lord. And now it's, hey, I wouldn't have. You feel the real reason behind it. He was paid to capture Peter and take him to planet Ego, but he's like, I had to do this beforehand. I just know he kills him.
Yeah, and that's a super interesting character thing.
Yeah, and so I didn't want it. Like, again, I had a special connection with this one after I learned what he had done, and I stopped doing it.
Yeah, and he kind of takes like a kinship with Rocket, and it's really interesting to see because he's like, you and me are the same person. You just don't see it.
Yeah.
And like hiding all the pain that's inside. And so there's a lot of interesting character things to like. And they introduce Mantis, and she kind of like can sense emotions, and she has these funny interactions with Drax where she's trying to understand kind of some of these interactions. And she like wrongly takes like a certain interaction as like flirtatious or almost, and Drax starts like gagging and trying to vomit. He's like, "Oh no, I would never. You're so ugly." But like she ends up like putting her hand like on his shoulder when he's talking about his wife and child who were killed. And it's just but he's staring straight face out into the sky, just acknowledging like through all this heartbreak that he's gone through all this pain, he still just keeps going. And it's such a powerful moment. There are so many good moments, but then there's others like Nebula's character is kind of deciding between helping the Guardians and not helping the Guardians. And she's in this in-between place. And it's just with all these, they have all these plot lines happening at the same time, and they don't always add up. And then they're just kind of shoehorned with, oh yeah, Ego has like a heart at the bottom of this planet, and then you just have to blow it up and then you're good.
Yep.
And that's that feels like kind of a cop out.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Definitely. And like the whole entire idea of like Ego's whole existence for living, he's left these seeds on all these planets that he's going to be able to conquer. He just needed more power
for whatever reason.
Yeah, I don't
he wanted to terraform everything into him, which you would think that if you lived for so long, and with him he has complex thinking.
Yeah.
For an intelligent creature, like you would think that he would eventually learn that, like, you know what, maybe having complete control over everything in the universe would not make me super happy.
Yeah.
But I guess there are no real lessons learned here. There is kind of for Nebula, but Peter's just like, well, my dad is kind of a bad dude, and I'm no longer half celestial. I lose my powers because Ego's gone. So I guess that's that. So where are we at the end of this movie? Right back where we were before this movie started. So,
and I think you get to learn a little bit about Peter gets to understand what it is to be more caring and understand his path. Yeah. And peep to Adam Warlock.
Yeah. They hint at Adam Warlock, which I'm super pumped for. But there are a lot of good things to like about this movie. And then pretty much from this point on, like most of these movies are pretty good.
I'll be honest. I call that movie pretty good in my mind, but
yeah. I'd say that this movie is fairly good. But anyways, that's our bottom 10. So the next time you hear from us, it will be for numbers 20 through 11, making our way down.
And thank you for everybody for coming to listen to the podcast. I know this one, we've had a lot of requests to do this one.
Yeah, this one's a big one.
In all honesty. So again, share this one with friends, family. Again, like we said last podcast, random strangers. Don't forget them.
Random homeless people on the street, go up to them and say, hey, like, have you listened to this podcast?
Burn it off to a CD.
No, no, don't do that. Please help wherever you can. We have appreciated all of your support, and we would appreciate it if you continued that by sharing it with as many people as you possibly can.
Yep.
And because yes, we are doing this to rekindle our friendship, but also we enjoy doing it for other people as well. It's interesting to hear other people and kind of what they think about it, and kind of get this new small town feel to all this.
Exactly. And our whole lives too. Every time a new movie would come out, we would always be caught in a situation where it was like, so what'd you think about that? What'd you think about that?
That's always who we have been. Yeah. We've always been that way.
And I still get it today, even when we do this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, how do I monetize? No.
How do I get money from this? No.
That's not the point of this at all.
No, not at all. So we are just two guys from a small town in Missouri who just love movies. And for me personally, the MCU was a huge gateway into my complete adoration for movies.
For sure. And just in superhero movies in general as well, too. So
yeah, except for maybe Daredevil and Elektra and Catwoman and the Blade trilogy. Anyways, sorry, except for all those.
Yeah. And I'm glad you didn't mention Morbius, which is going to be number one on this list here soon.
Which is obviously going to be number one.
But yeah, what can, like, if people do want to help, if people do want to see us continue to produce this content, what do they need to do, Christian?
Please follow us on Spotify and Apple Music now. Actually, it's through the Apple like music podcast app. There's two separate apps. Follow us on those two and Amazon Music as well. And follow us on our Instagram page at Big Screen Bowls Podcast. Please share it with as many people as you can. We have really enjoyed this. We are going to enjoy to keep doing it, and we hope to do more of this stuff for you. And please try to listen to us and download our episodes when you can. And that's pretty much it. You can become part of the hashtag Bowl Nation.
Hashtag be a bowl yourself today in 2022. What does it mean to be a bowl? Freedom.
Freedom.
I will think of other catchy words before the next podcast to make you want to become a part of Bowl. Hashtag Bowl Nation.
Hashtag Bowl Nation.
Thanks everybody for jumping on today. God bless. I know we're doing this right before Thanksgiving. Enjoy your families. Take care. And as always, Bowls out.